What happened here? How is the series with the most sold title on the Nintendo Switch now dwindling to an abandoned husk? Let's start from the beginning.
Welcome to Mario Kart!
I like video games, if you couldn't tell. They are my favorite form of media, and I've been in the gaming sphere since I was a kid. I've told this story before, but when I was young, I wasn't allowed to play video games because my mother didn't want me to get addicted like my older brother had, and thankfully for her, that worked
just as she had originally intended.
Anyway, that being said, while I wasn't allowed to play them myself, I was allowed to watch my two older sisters play video games. Growing up, we had a silver GameCube that they would play, well, GameCube games on. The main one being Animal Crossing. There were others as well, of course, but mostly that one. Skip ahead, and eventually I was given 1 hour a day to play video games. And just like that, the floodgates were open. Animal Crossing, Paper Mario, Kirby. I was open to all the cool games that, up to that point, I had only seen them play. Eventually, though, I would of course get to Mario Kart Double Dash. And it was pretty good. But it didn't really click with young me. That was until 2009. When my family got a Wii, and with it, a certain game.
Yahoo! Come on! Oh yeah! Hey! Hey! Wow! So cool! Yeah! Here I go!
Yeah! Mario Kart! Whee! Wahoo!
From there on, I was hooked. Mario Kart had become my favorite spin-off Nintendo party game franchise of all time. I would eventually enter even tournaments later in 8 and 8 Deluxe. That's how much I loved this franchise. I remember on Sundays forcing my cousin and my sisters to all play Mario Kart Wii in my grandparents' bedroom. That's how much I was addicted to this game. That being said, now that you have my perspective to work off of in terms of my love for this series, we can begin with the actual subject itself. And while I don't like focusing on negativity in my usual videos, I am also more than willing to be honest. Context aside, I think it's important that we start at the beginning.
Welcome to Mario Kart!
May 29th, 2014. The Wii U is the current gen Nintendo console. So as you can already tell from that, we Nintendo fans were thriving. That day, highly anticipated Mario Kart 8 was released. Being the prettiest looking entry yet, it visually caught the attention of fans past and now present. Past that, however, you'll find a great game with new mechanics, a stellar soundtrack, and even more. The game was a hit, and was solidified as another successful entry into the Mario Kart franchise. Heck, it was successful enough for Nintendo for the first time in this franchise's history to release DLC with new characters and tracks. Some not even from the Mario universe, which was a super cool touch. Overall, it was a great game, and it showed so much promise for the series going forward. Even if not perfect, with the battle mode being butchered for an example, we were all excited to see what would come next. If this was the level of quality that they would put out for Mario Kart 8, I mean, geez, that's just impressive. So, we all sat in anticipation. 2017. The Nintendo Switch is near its release, and as with all new console launches, one of the biggest threats to overcome is a limited game pool at launch. Why spend hundreds of dollars for a console with only 3 games on it? Well, Nintendo smartly knew this was an issue, and brought some already well-known good games, and brought it to this new console. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe would release on April 28th of 2017, and it was Mario Kart 8, but better. The DLC from the Wii U came with the game, so you didn't have to spend any extra money, and added new features, items, and even fixed battle mode. Overall, it was Mario Kart 8, but improved enough that people like me were fine with it. Plus, you could play it on the go. After 5 years of radio silence on Mario Kart, we were finally blessed with the news of the next Mario Kart. Oh, wait. So yeah, while not a new game, DLC for a great game could be cool. I and many others were skeptical. I mean, come on, I waited 5 years for a new Mario Kart and instead they're presenting me with paid DLC for an 8-year-old game? So I and many others would just have to wait and see. And to our surprise, it was amazing. 48 tracks were added in 6 waves from 2022 to late 2023. While these tracks were all pre-existing ones, being able to play them all in one well-made game? Heck yeah. They all translated over to 8 and its mechanics perfectly. They even brought in some new characters as well. Overall, this made Mario Kart 8 the biggest title ever in the series. However, there was still no word on Mario Kart 9 or whatever it was going to be. And at this point, it had been 8 years, ironically, since Mario Kart 8's release. And while, yeah, its gameplay is the best in the series or whatever, regardless, this is a long drought of a truly new Mario game. Whatever, 2 tiers in a bucket. I mean, hey, with this DLC, they most likely are using this as a way of buying time for whatever they're working on. Whatever it is, it must be big. So if we have to just be a little bit patient for whatever is next, so be it. Quick side note, in 2019 we got a phone game called Mario Kart Tour. It had microtransactions, and it's this whole can of worms that honestly could deserve its own hour-long segment, but for the sake of our time, I'm just going to skip over it. Just know that it was basically like a skinwalker where it was the appearance of Mario Kart, but in truth it was just a hideous monster. So we don't count Mario Kart Tour, and we don't talk about it. So for the sake of sanity, we're just going to pretend it doesn't exist. Also, side note part 2, this is actually something that was completely absent from the script. I just in editing realized and remembered I forgot to talk about this as well. There actually was another part of the Mario Kart release that happened. In 2020, actually, we got Mario Kart Home Circuit Tour. Or Live, or Home Circuit Live, whatever. Basically, it was like a toy, like Mario Kart toy, basically, that you could make your own courses at your home, and it was weird. Again, similar to Tour, it could basically have its own segment, but since this isn't part of the script, this isn't scripted, I just want to throw it in here and say, yeah, we actually got like a toy Mario Kart game before we got a full-on new Mario Kart game. What a wild time to be alive. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned this, because I knew someone was going to bring it up, so for the 2 people who remember this game exists, there you go. April 2nd, 2025. A live stream showing the Nintendo Switch 2 system for the first time and announcing its launch date. And as exciting as that was, it was most certainly overshadowed by the first showing of a new Mario Kart game. And once again, it looked gorgeous. Could it be because it had been over 15 years since the new Mario Kart game and we were all blinded simply with glee and joy over there being a new title? Most certainly, but even without that, everyone erupted in cheers. And not to mention, we saw really unique and surprising things like the cow from Moo Moo Meadows as a playable character, the different outfits, new mechanics. Everything was so exciting and, most importantly at the time, new. Finally, after 15 years, we were seeing the next step in Mario Kart's evolution. And yeah, there were concerns and problems that we'll get to in due time, but for just a moment, let's be excited. Finally, a new Mario Kart game. We've been waiting long enough for this. And better yet, it's going to be a launch title for the Switch too. Really, it's about as good of a launch title as you can get from Nintendo's standpoint. I mean, come on, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best-selling game on the original Switch. It makes sense they'd want to start off strong with Switch 2. And you can bet I was excited. I was counting down the days till the Switch 2 would release, and I could finally try out the new Mario Kart. And well, that brings us to today. Switch 2 has now been out for over 2 months at the time of me releasing this video, and that also means, by definition, Mario Kart World has also been out for over 2 months. And there's the backstory. Now you have what I believe is all that you need to know before we get into the actual heart behind this video game, or lack thereof. Regardless, let's dive right in and finally get to the main topic at hand, the game itself.
Welcome to Mario Kart!
In a lot of games, one of the first problems that will often pop up is storytelling, but this is Mario Kart. It doesn't have any of that in the sense that it's a pick up and party play game. So instead of that, I'm just going to give you the rundown of my day one experience with Mario Kart World, just as a starting point. Basically, as soon as it was available, I got the game and turned it on, and I was ecstatic. In Mario Kart, your options are to play online or play by yourself. Of course, for me, I don't have any friends, so I wanted to play by myself and try to see what all the new courses were, and I really wanted to see just all these new mechanics. And really, this isn't going to be me talking about these tracks in this video. I have a whole other video talking about specifically the basic 3-lap versions of each track, and not the transitions, so go watch that video if you're interested. For now, we're just going to skip over because, quite frankly, the tracks don't really have too much to do with my thoughts on Mario Kart World as a whole, so instead let's just jump right into some of the problems I have with this game. First things first, the Mario Kart series has a sort of a class system, as the games went on, called CCs. The typical options are 50cc, 100cc, and 150cc. These determine how fast your vehicle will go at top speeds, and generally a difficulty cap for the CPUs as well, though this isn't always true in the games. Generally speaking, the higher the CC, the faster you're going to go, and by definition, the harder the race will be. And an always fun part that tied well into this was trying to get 3 stars on each cup when playing by yourself or with a friend. Basically, you have to try to get first on every single race in a cup, and if you do that and finish first overall, then you'll get 3 stars. This has been swapped around. For example, in Mario Kart Wii, it was scaled off other factors outside of just reaching first. And it was a fun challenge that really showed your dedication to the franchise, and served as a great way to learn the tracks inside and out. Though, for the most part, this has been delegated to simply bragging rights, more than anything else. In Mario Kart Deluxe, for example, you'd actually get a skin for Metal Mario, which was Gold Mario. It wasn't much, but it was nice that you had some way of being able to show that you were able to accomplish such a feat. Mario Kart World, however, has none of that. Now, personally, I don't think that it's that big of a deal. For me, this has always been more of a challenge yourself for the journey rather than the end reward of having 3 stars. That being said, it would be nice to have something small. Why not tie it in with the sticker system, which, trust me, is going to get its own segment, but hey, whatever. 2 tiers in the bucket, am I right? Besides, there are still some unlockables. For example, you don't start off with the full cast, something I actually really enjoy because it reminds me of the games from back in the day, when it was super exciting unlocking new characters and karts, and that's kinda here. For example, when starting off, you may notice some fan favorites like Daisy or Donkey Kong not available, and yet Goomba and Cow is. Well, that's because, my dear friend, you have to beat certain cups in order to unlock these characters. Do you have to get first or even in the top 3? Nope. You simply have to complete the cup. Now, I'm not super upset by this. I mean, after all, these are baseline characters who should most likely be available anyway, but they obviously want to give some incentive to complete them. So our reward for playing is some of the most popular characters in the series. Okay, a little weird, but sure, I guess we'll just gatekeep some of the most popular characters to completing the Grand Prix mode. But then we won't give any reward for doing anything more than that. It's kind of weird, but okay. It's just one of those minor decisions that feels really bizarre from a design standpoint. Not necessarily a negative one, just more confusing. But I mean, we still have unlockables. For example, you can actually unlock a special cup, which has this game's Rainbow Road and Acorn Heights. And that was a cool surprise. I mean, up to this point, we didn't know that there was going to be a Rainbow Road or not. I mean, it would have been an outrage if we hadn't gotten another Rainbow Road for this game, but it's nice that it's here, and it's cool that you unlock it. It's not something that's just available from the start, though. Again, that's pretty common for the Mario Kart series, so it most likely was going to be that way. Outside of that, however, there are only a few other unlockables that are actually tied to the Grand Prix mode. One of the very few ones is Mirror Mode. So, as I mentioned, there are typically 3 CCs. That's seen in the series, as I mentioned. However, there was almost always a 4th option that was added into the later games, Mirror Mode. It was basically the same as 150cc, at least in terms of speed, but all the tracks would be swapped. So for example, if a turn in the normal mode would have you go left, in Mirror Mode it'll have you go right. It just added a little more variety to the game and made it so that way maybe races wouldn't be as stale if you play the game consistently enough. It was a nice little option and a fun little challenge to people who have consistently been playing on 150 to have a new outlook on certain tracks. It made it a new challenge. However, some of its requirements are tied to Grand Prix, but it's not specifically just Grand Prix, so we'll just put a pin in this for now. That being said, we'll have to talk about the only other unlockable that's tied to races, and it kind of is, but there is some logic to it. For example, it depends on what track or where in the track you get hit by the Kamek Orb. That determines what you get turned into. And if you get turned into the enemy that isn't already unlocked in your character roster, then they'll be unlocked after that race is concluded. Does that sound complicated to you? Because it really shouldn't be. For example, I remember in my playthrough I had 2 characters I'd yet to unlock after doing pretty much everything in Grand Prix mode. That being Peepa, as aforementioned, and Rocky Wrench. Both of these, to my knowledge, only have one segment in the game that they can possibly be unlocked in. So to actually get these characters, you either have to keep playing these tracks over and over and over again until you get lucky, or cheese it like I did by just playing, again, a private game with you, one person, and just trying to randomly get the blocks to work in your favor. Now, granted, I'm sure a lot of people, this is not a big deal for them, and a lot of people are playing this game casually, will eventually unlock these characters and just don't care. But the fact the way you unlock these characters comes down basically to luck and is gatekept by having to play specific tracks over and over and over again is not very fun, nor does it feel rewarding when you get them. It's not like in the past games you get a huge screen saying Peepa has now joined the race or something from Wii, or heck, pretty much any of the Mario Kart games for that matter. Instead, they're just there with an exclamation mark next to them. Now don't get me wrong, I get these characters may not be as popular as Donkey Kong or Daisy to deserve their whole big intro, but guess what? Neither was half of the baby characters when they were first implemented. So why are they refusing to make unlocking stuff in this game feel rewarding? It just feels so underwhelming, and I don't know why. Speaking of the actual last unlockable that I know of that's tied to Grand Prix is that of the karts. So, for some context, ever since Mario Kart 7, there was a new mechanic implemented into the game that allowed you to customize your karts from wheels, and its gliders, and its frames, and it was a really cool mechanic that allowed you to change up how you play the game, and make very specific builds around your playstyle. And it was really fun unlocking these car parts, which you'd receive by collecting a certain allotted amount of coins in the game, and then finishing cups with those coins. It was really fun and was really rewarding. I remember being excited to see what piece of what car I'd get next. This carried over to Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe, but did not make it into Tour, but that's fine because Tour again has its own problems. Mario Kart World, however, would go back to the OG style where instead of picking car parts, you're simply picking cars. Me personally, I actually don't have much of a problem with this. If you actually look at Mario Kart 8 from an online perspective, which for a lot of you I'm sure that's where you played the game the most, a lot of the time it basically just came down to was people using the same car parts that were considered the best and not actually trying to make cool designs or trying to build a car around their playstyle. People just thought it was considered good in top play and ran with it. So you really would only see the same 3 frames, the same tires, and maybe the same glider or 2. The glider was really the only customization you saw, so it being gone doesn't really change much to me personally. Plus, there is a decent amount of cart, and none of them are locked behind certain characters like they used to be.
It is a lot easier to unlock these than you'd think. I really don't have too much of a problem with the carts, but again, I wish there was a little bit more celebration than just a simple screen that pops up saying you collected 1,000 coins and congratulations, you get a vehicle. I know I'm reiterating, but it just feels less impactful. Anyway, Grand Prix, Grand Shmi, am I right? That's old news. Mario Kart World is attempting to bring something new into the series, an open world experience. Instead of each course just being its own little area that you have to stay in, now you can explore the areas in between the courses and check out every nook and cranny and free roam. Man, you even get to experience the Grand Prix with things like intermission tracks, and we have costumes for characters. No, not you. You're not important enough. That allow you to customize your experience and give you a rewarding feeling by playing the game. I mean, look at all these bells and whistles this game has. So now that we got our first impression of the game itself, to some degree, now we're going to get into the depravity. We're going to start tearing down the game and this game's flaws.
Welcome to Mario Kart!
A few days after the Switch 2 was shown and Mario Kart World was announced, we would get a Nintendo Direct all about the new Mario Kart, which was obviously very exciting. Everyone wanted to see what this new game had in store for it, and there was certainly a lot shown, including some new modes and some new mechanics. Now, there were going to be new types of tracks, for example. After a race was completed of 3 laps, you would enter what's known as an intermission. This would basically be a race from one track to another. So, for example, you'd be racing from Mario Bros. Circuit to Wario Stadium before engaging in your race there. It sounded really cool. Basically, you had to race to the race. It sounded really unique and seemed like an effective way to make use of this open world mechanic.
at least in baseline play. I mean, think about it. Being able to kind of take your own routes to the course, and sure, some might be better than others, but maybe they'd be riskier or harder to pull off, more punishing if you fail. And maybe you could then choose to go with a bigger crowd, but then have to worry about getting hit with all the chaotic items that Mario Kart is known for. Especially now that the game has up to 24 people in a race instead of 12. You have to race there, so you could have an advantage once you start the next 3 laps of the track. I mean, imagine it. It really sounded quite cool, actually. Sure, the way they described it was a little confusing, but let's have some faith. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get, is going to be pretty good. And then the game came out. And intermissions were not what I or pretty much anyone else was expecting. If you were like us, as soon as you got the game, you started playing on the Mushroom Cup in Grand Prix mode. You'll be shown 4 courses that you'll be playing on. Pretty typical so far. Carries that on forward with a really cool intro showing all of the tracks. And the first course being exactly what you expect, 3 laps of that course. However, once you finish that and get your placement, you start off in the first of the new intermissions. You go from Mario Bros. Circuit to Crown City. So if you were me in that moment, you thought, oh cool, now here's where I get to race other people to the track and then do the 3 laps that I'm expecting from a Mario Kart game. So you do the race, and whoa, wait, we're done? I just got here. Okay, whatever. Maybe it's just because Crown City is a very big map, some transitions are going to be longer than others, so maybe it'll be 2 laps or certain tracks that are closer. If it's not close enough, 3 laps then? I don't know, we'll figure this out. There's gotta be more to this than I think. So we get to the next track and it's the same thing. And then the next track is the exact same thing as well. But then once we start the next cup, the first track starts the same. The 3 laps before going back to the intermissions. Now, maybe to a lot of you this isn't that big of a deal, and maybe it's truly not, but me personally, when I first saw the intermissions, I assumed it was going to be something that added to the race and not cut back on laps. For example, I thought once we got to Crown City, we'd be doing the 3 laps around it, but instead we do 1 lap there, and then that's the end of the race, so I guess the rest of the intermission counted as those other laps. Okay, again, this on paper isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if some of the intermissions are quite far away, or if they themselves operated like how I described. But if you couldn't tell from my tone of voice, this is not the case. Now, I don't know how many of you in my audience have driven before, but I assume a lot of you have at least been in a car, even if you're not the one driving. And from that very select minority, how many of you have been on a highway? You're driving, keeping pace with somebody in front of you, sometimes passing, and that's pretty much all you'll do for around an hour. If you couldn't tell, it's not the most entertaining thing in the world. Well, if it is entertaining to you, you may just like Mario Kart World, because that's what the intermissions are all about. Okay, that's not entirely true, but it's pretty accurate. Well, I thought intermissions meant that you could basically take any route you could possibly conceive to the track, except for having to enter the track at specific points. You could start the race off legitimately then once you arrived. Instead, you were all forced onto the same narrow path. If it was a little bit more open, even in that path, I think it would be a lot more tolerable, but a lot of times, it just isn't. 90% of the time, the game secludes you into a very tiny road or highway where they scatter a bunch of cars, plop some enemies down, some item boxes, and say, have fun, we'll see you at the course. Yeah, sure, there are shortcuts, and yeah, sure, there's some technical stuff to do, and yes, there are some interesting mechanics that are tied to it, but for the most part, the intermissions are just not very fun. Or at least not fun in the way that I anticipated based on how they were talking about it in the past. What should have been a cool addition to the series instead just feels like some lazily thrown together piece that was forced to be included. Now, again, don't get me wrong, I do think there is fun to be had in these intermissions. In fact, when I'm playing locally with my family, it's us against the CPUs, I actually can find it to be a lot of fun playing the intermissions. It's fun, the chaos of everyone being next to each other, having all these items that are throwing each other, trying to figure out what's the fastest route I can take while also mitigating the risks of the entire crowd, even if my options are limited. It's legitimately pretty fun. However, outside of that context, they are just very boring. It's quite clear to me that the main idea with the intermissions was really to hammer in the chaos of Mario Kart. Yeah, they added 24 people, but they really wanted those 24 people to be close. This can be seen not just in these intermissions and how they're designed, forcing everyone to be on a path that's quite small for 24 people, but beyond that, the item balance even kind of leans into this as well. A lot of the items that are given aren't going to be the normal mushrooms or stuff unless you're in the very back. For the most part, they want it to be shells, bananas, bombs, stars, boomerangs, and fire flowers. Again, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Wanting to encourage the chaos that's found in Mario Kart is pretty fun. I mean, look at Balloon Battle, or one of my favorite courses from the older games, Baby Park. But that's the thing. those were very small parts of those games, or were avoidable for the most part. You didn't have to play battle mode or choose Baby Park. But in Mario Kart World, you cannot mitigate that. They really want to hammer this idea of being close together. That's why the blue shell hits really hard and causes whoever gets hit to be stuck way longer than anything else, whereas someone who gets hit by a green shell now is only stuck for a few seconds. They want the crowd to be together. They don't want people having really big breakaways, and they don't want people getting too far behind. And whether that's a bad thing or not is more up to a personal taste of how you like the game. But the problem is when you force such a large mechanic into the game, having 3/4 of the cups be these intermissions where basically you just drive straight into a line, take a small turn, go over one ramp if you're lucky, and then end up in the course where we get to do one lap. It's just really tedious. Here's the thing, I'm sure many of you who have played with friends or maybe even online have had some fun experiences with intermissions. As I've said multiple times, and I'll continue to say, I've had some of those myself. However, I implore you if you have the game yourself to go play solo, just with the CPU on 150cc, just do the intermissions. I'm very curious to see how many of you find that to be genuinely enjoyable. The problem isn't that it's undercooked or just thrown there for us to have, it's also that Nintendo wants us to be playing this. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting into this controversy. Now, while I've already gone on stating for me that the intermissions are certainly disappointing and not what I'd call super duper fun, in my mind they do have their merits, and I think if presented a little bit differently, they could be a cool mechanic. Nintendo, being the bright leading star company, decided that, hey, we're seeing a lot of people really don't seem to like these intermissions. Or some people are liking them but wish they could be tweaked in some small ways. Now, of course, it's too late for us to completely redo big segments of this game, realistically, but that doesn't mean we can't use this moving forward to make some small changes that may help, whether it be with item balance, or as I said, make it so that once you're at the location you get to do those 3 laps. Nintendo decides, in all their wisdom, you know what would be better? If online races, when people are voting for which courses to go to, 90% of the time we make it so they have to play these intermission courses instead. I mean, if we force them to play it, they'll eventually learn to like it, right? Yeah, so if you didn't know, Mario Kart's online works like this. You join a lobby, you then vote on a course, one is randomly selected, you all play on that course until it's finished, once it's done, you rinse and repeat. That's basically all it is to it. It's just racing. It's a racing game, for goodness sake. And the intermissions were included in this online voting, so if people wanted to play the intermissions, they could. But they could also vote to just play the normal courses, or the 3-lap versions. You know, like it's been for every other gosh dang game in the series. But Nintendo, being the forward-thinking company, they decide, you know what, let's change it up. And one of the first updates that this game got, and now one of the very few, they changed the online mechanics so that intermission tracks would be given way more often. And I don't mean, oh, they increased the odds of the intermission courses of being slightly more likely to appear on the list. No, I'm saying that it is more often than not possible for you to play for 2 hours and see only one basic course being played, and the rest being intermissions. That is insane. Nintendo designed these amazing courses and brought back old ones and redid them in a lot of cool ways, but they don't want you to play those. No. They want you to drive in a straight line for 2 minutes before you get to race one time around those beautiful tracks, and then you're done. Rinse and repeat. This is arguably the biggest controversy this game has had since its launch. It has made people straight up quit the game and go back to Mario Kart Deluxe. That's how big of a deal this is to some people. Me personally, as I said, I find some enjoyment in the intermission tracks. I just wish they were balanced more than how they are. Make a new mode, for example, where it's kind of how I described it earlier, where you get to race around the track normally first or after. Or let's, I don't know, update the game again so that we can make it as it was where people are forced to play the game mode they do not want to play. But no, people have not been silent about the situation either, of course, as you probably know, and Nintendo has done nothing. They haven't released a statement, they haven't updated the game in a way that seems to remedy or give an option for this. Basically, they gave you an overpriced, undercooked steak, and then when you ask for it to not be literally oozing blood because you don't want to die of some sort of blood poisoning or something, they instead say, guess what, you get what you paid for, this is how we designed it back in the kitchen. Now, obviously I'm exaggerating things for the sake of entertainment, but still, this is legitimately a genuine issue. I get the intermission tracks are a big part of the game, it feeds into the open world design as I said, and I get it, they're really going for this, but clearly Nintendo, if people aren't wanting to play it, it says there's an issue with said mode. And maybe now the team behind the game are now trying to scratch their heads to figure out how to fix this, but clearly, if that was the case, why wouldn't they update the game to simply fix these intermissions? Maybe they were hoping that more people are playing the intermissions so that they can hear the complaints of those people and know how to fix them, right? Let's be optimistic. But let's be honest, that's nothing more than a dream. That's not all though. What they're doing is they're forcing what they made and what they want the game to be onto others. They aren't letting the community take hold of the game in any way. They're giving us the game that they want us to have, and honestly, I can write about this specific topic alone for a while because this has been a problem with not just a Nintendo, but basically any big gaming company for a while. But again, I don't want to keep you here all day, so we're instead going to actually tie this in. As I mentioned, the intermissions are mostly designed around the big mechanic in Mario Kart World, and it's a doozy. So clearly, if the intermissions are undercooked, maybe the main central mechanic that it's themed around will be better. I mean, obviously, right? If they had to try to attach something into it, it was probably just because they were so proud of it and really wanted to help make it shine and stand out even. Just as normal gameplay would, right? To which I'd respond to you, what have I been complaining about for the past 10 minutes?
Welcome to Mario Kart.
Do you remember when Breath of the Wild was first shown? A truly open world, the Legend of Zelda experience was radical. Do you remember when Mario Odyssey was shown? While not open world, it showed huge open levels that allowed you to really explore them, like Sand Kingdom. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but it showed promise. Leading into this idea, and eventually would lead to stuff like Donkey Kong Bonanza. Then Tears of the Kingdom would come along and add new areas. Even all of those games have their own problems as well, but regardless, clearly Nintendo was showing that open worlds as a concept was cool and an innovative idea to introduce into their series. So you know what game could really use an open world? The racing game. Now obviously I'm joking, but honestly on paper it's not a terrible idea. Being able to explore a huge area with Mario Kart's mechanics is kinda cool, and being able to race around it and create your own tracks would be neat. Maybe there's a lot of potential to be had in that idea. So what does Nintendo decide to do? They decide to throw a ton of stickers on an island and say go find them and have fun. Basically it's the world's biggest Easter egg hunt, except instead of chocolate or a little bit of money, you get instead a little sticker saying good job sport, we're proud of you. Obviously, they very much intended for the open world to be an eye-catching idea when they were advertising the game. I mean, it's literally the entirety of the name. Instead of being Mario Kart 9 or something, it's Mario Kart World. They clearly want this to seem like some open experience. So of course, jokes aside, what's actually available here? Well, you can drive around basically the entire area, go from course to course, check out new areas that you can't actually explore normally in the race, because Lacadude is a little bit, and take in a lot of cool small details that you may not notice. Outside of that, they knew that there had to be more to entice people. Obviously, a lot of people who only had a few hours a day to play a game aren't really just going to want to drive around in circles. And besides, Mario Kart's known for its excitement and really innovative gameplay. And so, they decided to bring back a very much beloved and highly anticipated mode, Mission Mode. In Mario Kart DS, there was a bonus mode called Mission Mode. This was really cool and incentivized players to do very specific tasks. To, 1, get better at the game, but 2, to also get some pretty cool rewards for doing so. Sure, it didn't have the most depth to it, but it was really fun and has long since been a hope from fans like me to return. And they indeed brought it back. Kind of. Scattered throughout Mario Kart World are P-switches. All you have to do is drive over it and then a challenge will be initiated. It'll show a little camera pan and show you where you're going, a little bar of text to tell you what you're doing, and that's it. Some of these challenges are pretty neat, especially the ones that are tied into the game's mechanics. One of the hardest but most rewarding was the one in Shy Guy Bazaar where you have to do all the tricks. I know you all know which one I'm talking about. And these are fun, and there are a lot of them obviously, it's a huge open world, but there's more than I'm sure you'd actually probably anticipate. Because, get ready for this, there are 394 P-switches scattered throughout Mario Kart World. That's a lot of content to be sure, and a lot of different challenges. First, you have to find said P-switches as they aren't marked on your map, and even once you find and complete them, they still aren't marked on your map. So you don't really have a good method of keeping track of it. You either have to keep mental track, or use an online site like I did if you're trying to do them all. Or just don't want to waste your time looking for them forever, because I certainly didn't. So there are 394 challenges. Some have got to be really cool and unique, and sure, there's a lot of fun to be had with the challenge mode. And I certainly enjoyed exploring the world and doing all of them myself, because I have a confession, Internet. I'm calling you today, Internet, to say I don't have any respect for my free time. I decided to really give Mario Kart World the deep and dirty. Pause. Obviously, being a Mario Kart fan and having an open world thrown at me, I'm not gonna back down. I'm doing it all, baby. And so I did complete all 394 P-switches in the game. Here, a picture of proof. I don't really know if I can do something to prove it's me. I mean, I'll put my hand in it or something and start waving it back and forth, or really, I don't know, maybe something stupid. I don't know, I'll figure it out. But there you go, I did it. I wanted to experience Mario Kart World and what had been leading up to 15 years of development, and I gotta say, it's okay. Having a mission mode we have to actually go find the missions is pretty fun. A lot of them are really cool and have designed in unique ways. For the most part, though, a lot of these are repeats. And I definitely feel like I got better at the game and knowing certain cuts and stuff by doing them. The P-switches are fun, but there's even more than that. At every course, there are a few question mark panels that you can find. All you have to do is drive over them and it'll be marked off. They then give you a cool unlockable too. For each P-switch that is completed in every question mark panel that is driven over, you will be given a sticker. These stickers can all be seen in the game's main menu, where you can take a closer look at this collection. And you can even select one to be your profile when you're in online races. It'll also appear on some of the carts. And that's it. These stickers are basically just a show of you doing it. Very similar to Hetsu's gift from Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, it's basically a huge steaming pile of dookie. Yeah, I know it doesn't always have to be about the end reward. Sometimes it can just be about the journey itself, and that's fine. I was not anticipating something huge for collecting every single P-switch. More so, I was hoping maybe for, I don't know, anything, a message to pop up saying, "You did it, champ, good job on you," or "Thank you for playing our game." Maybe I could rewatch the credits or something, anything to acknowledge the fact that I played your game through. Yeah, sure, you can call me shallow all you want, but I feel like most people are expecting something when putting in that effort, especially to such a major aspect of the game. You create this huge open world to tie intermissions into it, which, as I mentioned, have their own problems, and then the only other mechanic tied to it are collecting stickers? How much fun could you drive from that? Oh, but wait. As Nintendo loved to show during their presentation, you can connect with friends, if you have any, and drive around in the open world yourself. And heck, with those friends, you can even put on game chat so you can talk to them and take pictures. Listen, I get that this is most likely a mechanic intended for younger children who will really enjoy this, and for them, go for it. Have fun. I'm not judging you. Heck, even if you're a grown adult doing this and liking this as a mechanic, that's fine. I'm just saying that you have to be honest with me here. Do you expect people like me who play this game for hundreds of hours, who are dedicated to it, to really find enjoyment driving around and taking pictures with the homies?
Once again, guys, this is me in editing. This is not scripted at all. But I realized when I was editing, I kind of hammered on this point a little bit poorly. And just in general, I noticed in this segment that kind of my thoughts could be misconstrued. So I'm just going to quickly kind of hopefully fix that. What I'm getting at here isn't that the photo mode is a bad addition to the game or to any game in general, or even that what is here is bad. The P-switches are fine. The collection, the collectathon stuff is fun. But what I am getting at is that these issues, or the issue that I have with it rather, is that a lot of these mechanics and stuff are underwhelming for a selling point, if that makes sense, you know, for Mario Kart. Obviously Mario Kart's main selling point is its mechanics, its driving, how many different racetracks there are. And that's the thing, is I feel like this game in that aspect is not great, because the thing that they're trying to sell you on obviously is the open world mechanics, and while the mechanics that are there are fine, I just don't think that they are worth being a selling point, if that makes sense. Again, not that the taking pictures is a bad mechanic, or that the collectathon's a bad mechanic, but basically what I'm getting at, to summarize, instead of having you listen to the original script here, is I just don't think that what is here is worth being a selling point to such a big degree, if that makes sense. It's just really weird to me that this is something that they put so much of an emphasis on for something like Mario Kart anyway. So anyway, that being said, I'll let you get to the next point I have, so here you go.
Welcome to Mario Kart.
So, as I mentioned, there are now outfits in Mario Kart World. Really cool, different costumes. You can put your characters in to customize them. It's small, but really charming. And sure, the unlock method isn't my favorite, but isn't also so unenjoyable to the point of it being pointless. In fact, it actually gives some heart and credence to the open world, as little as that actually adds up to. You have to collect this new item called Dash Food. Once eaten, depending on what food item you got, you will then have your character transform into one of the new outfits. It doesn't actually change the gameplay once you're in that outfit, but it does add some cool differences, including a new trick animation. It gives a reason to go into the open world, because there you can go and hunt down all the food items and try to get all the costumes to your character. It can be kind of weenie-ish if you do it that way, but at least it gives some reason for it. And with so many characters in the game, I mean, there's gotta be a ton of costumes, right? But well, sure. For Mario, Wario, Peach, or Luigi, of course they're going to have a lot of costumes. I mean, they're the faces of the game. But if you're, I don't know, let's say Donkey Kong, Pauline, or God forbid, any of the enemy characters, you're looking at 1 or 0 costumes. So those enemy characters that are cool, that they're here and hard to unlock for, and are a big part of this game and take up at least over half of the game's actual cast, there are no costumes for you. So there's no way to customize your character, and even if you're a character who has a customization option like Donkey Kong or Pauline, that's just the problem. Did you hear my phrasing? I said a costume option. How is it that Donkey Kong and Pauline have only 1 costume? You can maybe make the argument for Pauline since she's just now getting mainstream relevance thanks to the new Donkey Kong game, but Donkey Kong? Really? You're gonna give DK 1 outfit? And yeah, I know people are gonna get mad at me for complaining. Oh, why are you so mad they didn't put 1,000 costumes? No, idiot, they don't have to put 1,000 costumes in. But the fact they're clearly prioritizing certain characters and other ones are being left behind completely definitely makes playing those other characters feel less rewarding and just in general less enjoyable. If you're somebody who loves Donkey Kong, let's hope that you really like his 1 costume, because guess what? According to Nintendo, that's all you're gonna get. And you know what, that being said, let's back up for a second, because even looking at the other characters like Mario and Rosalina, who you know are going to have more costumes than just 1, a lot of their costumes aren't actually really new designs that are designed for this game. In fact, almost all the costumes you see in this game come from a little game I told you to ignore, but guess what, we have the joy of bringing back up now. We have to revive it like Frankenstein, because Mario Kart Tour rears its ugly, deformed head again. A lot of the costumes that are in this game are direct ports from the ones we're seeing in Mario Kart Tour. Now, I'll be honest with you, I actually don't mind this. A lot of these are really cool designs that were part of Mario Kart Tour, making their way into the main series. I think it's more than fine. They worked hard making these models, and so being able to port them over with some small tweaks and updates, I think it's fine. It gives us more stuff to customize and is just a fun, enjoyable experience that can make this game feel less empty. But then why in the world are there so few of them for certain characters? Why not spend that time to make new ones for those characters, or heck, even just palette swaps? Why can't I play as the Red Koopa Troopa, or the Poison Piranha Plant, or the Paragoomba, or heck, even the Paratroopa, who was a character in the past Mario Kart games? It's not like color swaps have got to be that hard to implement it. I get that developing a game isn't easy. Having to create new models isn't easy. Even porting over old models cannot be the easiest thing in the world, but this is just so lazy seeming. Maybe others don't care about the costumes to this extent, and I'm sure other people would rather just focus on the more gameplay-oriented problems. But for some reason, this really irks me, especially because my heart of hearts told me that, you know what, I'm betting that Nintendo is going to update the game and add more of these costumes. It's a good way to get people coming back into the game. It definitely encourages people to check it out. And while I'm glad you don't have to pay for these outfits like in Tour, or a stupid battle pass or something, the fact that there's so few of them definitely opens the gateway for adding more things into this game. Which is what leads us to one of our final talking points.
Welcome to Mario Kart.
Now at this point, I'm willing to admit that outside of my issues with the intermission courses, a lot of the complaints I have could be called pedantic or pretentious of me. And to be fair, I wouldn't necessarily fully disagree. In all honesty, a lot of times when people are talking about things they dislike about a game, it can be blown to a much higher proportion than it actually is. Not that that invalidates any criticism, mind you, but it is worth noting that perspective is a big part of these reviews. So why I bring this up near the tail end? Well, it's because we're getting to the point where I think regardless of a perspective, we can all come together collectively and agree that this is a problem. Interestingly enough, the issue I'm about to touch on kind of goes on a 180 of the only other video on my channel that's all about my problems with the video game, that being the New Horizons one. In that one, I specifically mentioned that one of the biggest gripes I had with it was how it released feeling like an unfinished game. A lot of things that would be in the past games from that series just weren't there at launch. And while yes, Nintendo did eventually update the game pretty consistently with new content would be in quotations, as a lot of that stuff was stuff we'd seen in past games. Mario Kart World has a okay amount of content, especially if you include the open world collectibles, but coming off the heels of something like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which included DLC that had a ton of tracks and customization options, it's pretty safe to say a lot of people, myself included, were kind of expecting there to be some road of updates of whether there'd be new carts, some new costumes, and hopefully a few new tracks, even if they didn't necessarily tie in with the open world as well as the launch tracks did. Or, you know, the bare minimum of updating the game to help balance certain changes. But of course, as you may have been able to guess, you've probably seen online yourself, Mario Kart World has been left to crumble. Since its release, we have gotten very few updates, and the ones we've had are very small. The biggest change that doesn't affect things negatively was that they changed the open world so that way the numbers would turn yellow to signify you collected all of the things. That's legitimately the only good change that happened from these updates, outside of a few bug fixes. Other than that, as I already mentioned, back in one of the previous segments, the only other updates have seemingly been to ruin the game from an online experience. Nintendo updated how the online voting system worked for tracks, and made it so intermissions were now way more common. I already kinda gave my 2 cents on how this is bad for the game, in the sense of forcing the community to play something they don't want to, so I'm not gonna keep touchy on that, but there's clearly a problem here. Nintendo knows Mario Kart is one of the biggest franchises, as I keep reiterating it was the biggest game on the Switch for the longest time, and even now, if you look at the Switch eShop, it's still pretty commonly in the top 3 most sold, even with things like Silksong being released. And I don't think I've ever seen Mario Kart 8 drop underneath the top 5. Meanwhile, if you look at the Nintendo Switch 2 online eShop, Mario Kart World isn't even in the top 10. Now, part of the reason that this statistic is the way it is because of the fact that Mario Kart World is being abandoned by the developers. They are not updating the game or even suggesting that they will. They then decided with one of the very few updates they would give us to change the game, they decided to make it so that they would change it in a way that people didn't want. And so, a lot of the community decided, you know what, why would I not just go back and play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? Has way more content for a cheaper price, has a more lively online scene, and just in general seems like a clear choice of modern Mario Kart. And yes, as I stated earlier, Mario Kart World was unlikely to be able to compare to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in terms of raw content at launch, but that was the thing. At launch, it seemed very obvious to me and pretty much everyone else to me to make Mario Kart World a bigger experience with online updates. Not to rely on them to make the game great, but to help keep people invested in it. Especially if you're going to make them pay as much as they are for it, which will be in the last conglomerate of talking points we get into in just a moment. But before we get to the end of this discussion, I simply want to point this out to you. Mario Kart was one of the most innovative titles in gaming. It may not seem that way now, but think back to when it came out. How many racing games were there that were considered popular? Yeah, sure, there were 1 or 2 that were enjoyed, but Mario Kart really put racing games, realistic or not, on the map. Think of how many games you've seen that try to copy the Mario Kart formula since then. Little Big Planet on the PlayStation got their own spin-off, and I mean, there's millions more. Lego, Garfield, pretty much anything that can be turned into a video game is going to have its own kart racer. And that all started with Mario Kart. And Mario's biggest rival, arguably, is Sonic, and of course, he'd get his own racing games. Though his would have a much rockier start, as Sonic R is seen as one of the most laughably bad Sonic games in the world. And while the other racing games are okay, no one would really consider them to be replacements for the Mario Kart series, or really to even be in the top of the best of them. However, this year, a new Sonic racing game is releasing, Sonic Racing Cross World. At the time of me recording this, there was just a live demo for people to play for a few days, where you could test the game's mechanics and see how it ran for free. And it popped off. Everyone was playing this thing. I personally didn't get around to it, but I've only heard good things about this game, and the numbers show that this seems to be the best Sonic racing game we've ever seen. And sure, we can make fun of it for that, but it seems undeniable that Sonic has entered as some strong competition to Mario Kart. But not only that, we may be looking at a game to replace Mario Kart as a top racing game, and you may think, oh, but that's going to be on PlayStation or Xbox only, right? Nope. Sonic Racing Cross World is going to be on the same system as Mario Kart World, and if we compare the prices and what people are saying, along with what seems to be a much more aware development team, things aren't looking good for our boy Mario right now. And it seems like this is a running theme now with most AAA games. The developers will make something amazing that people love. People will continue to support that product through highs and lows, but eventually companies will get complacent. People are going to buy whatever, and so you just make whatever. You don't care about quality or trying to innovate, you don't care about deadlines, and you don't care about your community. And instead, what gets left behind is something shallow. They don't expect that people are ever going to stop buying. It's a sad cycle that a lot of AAA developers are tapped into. And not even just the developers, but also the companies that they fall under are usually the biggest advocates for this crap. And it seems like, unfortunately, Mario Kart may be entering the same minefield that so many have before.
Welcome to Mario Kart.
What once started as a hope for a fanbase forced to wait years for a resurgence is currently nothing more than a husk. As always, I think that it is only fair to talk about what is good about this game, because there is a lot of good here. The graphics are pretty good and are definitely an improvement from 8. A lot of the new tracks aren't terrible. New mechanics presented are fun to use, though not balanced properly at all. New additions like the costumes are more than enjoyable, and easily the two biggest pieces of credit I can give to the game is its amazing soundtrack, which, my goodness, if you haven't listened to it and you're a fan of any of the Mario Kart or even Mario games, please go on YouTube and look for the soundtrack. It's beautiful. It's what you've been hearing throughout the entire episode, but really, it deserves its own highlight. And two is, well, the open world. No, not as a whole, I'm not contradicting myself that hard, but I think in the open world you can see glimmers of the development team's love for this franchise. It shows most with the soundtrack, but it also shows pretty well with this open world. I mentioned very briefly earlier some of the small details that you can find here, but every single one of these, whether it be the fact that if you honk at the cars, they'll have them wave back at you, or the posters that seem to reference certain Mario-related movies, all these things clearly show love from a development team. A team that was probably excited, that really cares about the Mario Kart franchise, that knows what it means to people like me. A team that was excited to share the next step for Mario Kart. And I won't take that away from this game. Mario Kart World is still fun. It has its fun merits to it, and clearly the team behind it does have a passion for it. There is love here, present. And while I may not know what was going on behind the scenes and how we got to where we're at right now with this game, what I can say is that Nintendo thinks that Mario Kart World is such a good title that it's worth an astounding $90 for a physical copy of this game. Which, yeah, it's its own controversy, I know, but so many people have talked about this. It's the bare minimum. And at this point, I have nothing more to really add to that conversation. $90 is ridiculous. $80 is ridiculous even for the digital copy. Like, copy? What in God's flat green earth? But what do I have to say to those of you who love Mario Kart like I do? And you're on the fence of getting it or eventually want it, but the Switch 2 is way too expensive, or the game is too expensive, all of which is valid, by the way. But just in case the huge AAA company somehow has this video reach their ears, here are a few of my ideas, or things that I think should be implemented that doesn't have to do with obvious like DLC stuff. Number 1. Why is it that we can't listen to the amazing soundtrack whenever we want? One, it's not on Nintendo Music, the actual application, the official one. I don't think there's actually any Nintendo Switch 2 related titles on there right now. But this would be a good first edition. Look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where you could actually go from the home menu and listen to the music. That was an update near the end of that game's life cycle. Why can't we do that here? Or another cool thing that would actually tie into the open world mechanic, how about in free roam let me change the radio so I could have music on loop or something. That way I could just relax and drive around, which feels like it'd fit into what they were going for more with the, open world mechanic. The other big thing that really throws me off is the sticker mechanic. I complained about very lightly, but here's a very good addition to it. I like the fact that one sticker appears on the actual vehicle itself, but why not make it that we can then customize the vehicle with up to like 10 stickers per vehicle or something, and then save certain customizations for specific carts, like presets, for example. And being able to decorate every single vehicle with different, amounts of the stickers, place them in different locations. Wouldn't that be super cool? It'd be something small, but again, it'd give more credence to why you'd want to collect the stickers, and again, would give more customization options. I feel like this would be, maybe not the easiest thing to implement, but it would be so cool. Please, Nintendo, let the stickers have a use. Lastly, this is a very minor talking point, so I guess I'll just add it here at this very end. Things you should change segment. The battle mode in this game sucks. I don't know why we went back to Mario Kart 8 where we used the tracks themselves as the battle arenas instead of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which literally had actual areas made specifically for battle mode. I get that open world is huge, took a lot of time to make, but just make areas designed for battle mode. Also, why do we only have 2 types of battle mode when last time we had, even originally we had I think a few, right? We only have 2 here. Why is it such a downgrade? Why did we just not care about battle mode in this game, Nintendo? What happened? Why can't I change the settings so that way I respawn but lose half my points like in Mario Kart Deluxe? That was a cool mechanic. I think having it so that way when you use all your balloons you're out completely is a cool option, but why remove the old? I just don't get it, man. I don't get it. But there you go, Nintendo. There's a few suggestions from yours truly. I will say this. I love Mario Kart, and I still do. I'm disappointed in the current state of Mario Kart World, but there are things I do like about it. There's clearly a team that made very odd choices and mistakes about the game, but they still clearly have love for it. And if you've already played it and have things you like or dislike, hold on to those emotions and those feelings. But above all else, as it currently stands, Do not buy Mario Kart World. I cannot in good faith say that this game is worth its price. I'm not going to sit here at the end of this and claim like my opinion is the end-all be-all, or that Nintendo is the Satan of the video game world like so many other people do, because to be honest, I've been pretentious enough in this video. I gave you my opinions. I shared with you some of the good and the many bad. And even after this, I'll continue to love Mario Kart as a franchise, and I'll continue to hold out hope that we'll see something in the future about Mario Kart World getting updates or anything. Until then, I'll continue to enjoy the aspects of this game that I love, because, quite honestly, in my opinion, it's far easier to find the bad in stuff than it is the good. Regardless, it's fitting that Mario Kart World is so open and vast, because right now, it just feels so empty. As always, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching. I hope to see you all in the next one.